This episode of Inside Golf Podcast is brought to you by Inside Sports Network.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Boston Capital Twitter, Steve, on the Hold the Green podcast.
All right, we are live. Tapping birdie.
All right, Carson Young is here.
I bet Ludwig at 28.
Let's go. I bet
You
him
do
at,
too?
I bet him at 25.
Low sevens. I think there's some guys in here we like.
Harris English at 7,300.
Why the fuck would I not bet Rory?
What's up, guys? It's producer Cam here. ISN is now partnered with Shorty's Golf. Shorty's Golf is designed to provide kids with the perfect introduction to the game of golf by offering high-quality clubs and equipment specifically tailored to their needs. They offer custom sizes for various age groups, ensuring that the kids have clubs that are tailored to their height and strength. They feature fun, vibrant colors and lightweight stand bags that are easily adjustable. Each set features real stainless steel clubs, high-quality materials, and sturdy construction, making them long-lasting while providing a real golf experience. We actually bought our kids sets for Christmas last year, and they absolutely love them. We go out in the backyard, we take them to the range, and one of the things that really stuck out to us was the Club Up program. So whenever they grow out of this set, we can send them back for a discount on the next size up so that they can keep having clubs that are properly sized for them. So go check them out, golfshorties.com. Use ISN15 at checkout for $15 off your purchase.
This episode of Inside Golf Podcast is brought to you by Inside Sports Network. Now is a great time to sign up with the PGA Championship. Right on the horizon, we've got you covered with the best golf course information, the best ownership, phenomenal community. I continue to be super impressed by just the level of insight and discussion in our Discord channel, and there's something in there for everyone. If you are a lot more of a casual bettor and DFS player, and you just want a place to sweat your bets and talk golf with a bunch of other like-minded individuals, we've got a place for you. It's a great hang, and we are unveiling in the next week or so a brand new tool that I think a lot of people are going to enjoy. Shout out one of our members, Tyler Martin, who has been working on this for a couple of weeks now, but we're going to launch a live odds screen. We really wanted to highlight and identify market movement and create a tool where you can not only just find the best number across all books, but a place also where you can easily identify, okay, what betting number did this open at? What is the number now? We call it our nuke meter. And I'm really proud to unveil it starting this week for our members. So a huge shout out to Tyler for all the work that he did behind the scenes to get this up and running, because it's an idea that I had, for a month or two, and it was by no means easy to build and easy to operate. So we've got you covered. If you now want a place to be able to aggregate what book has the best number on a player, as well as who got bet down, who is drifting, we've got all that now at Inside Sports Network. Try it out for a week. I promise you will not be disappointed at the level of insight that you are getting. All right, we are back. Took a nice little off week from the podcast. The plan was refuel, focus on a ton of other company stuff that had always been on my longer form to-do list to get done, but I haven't been able to prioritize in the way that I normally would like, because the regular content schedule of research, writing, doing shows, and ownership already takes up a lot more time than I feel like I often have. But I saw that in our Discord, there was still a ton of interest in Zurich stuff. And of course, this was not a surprise, as this is the place to be and hang out if you are a true degenerate and are willing to bet any golf tournament on 5 different tours. So I somehow ended up with a full Zurich card, ran ownership, and even did a show on Wednesday night as well with Rishi. And long story short, I am not going to make money on the Zurich. And I kind of knew that coming in and did it anyway, but this is such a dumb, ridiculous tournament. You know what? I can't even even totally say that in fairness that it is a total crapshoot, because 2 years ago I hit Davis Riley and Nick Hardy at 60-1. And if you ask me right now, after this tournament ends, I would have told you, or excuse me, if you asked me right after I hit Riley and Hardy, I would have told you there's a ton of opportunity at this event. If you spend some time running a model for it and figure out which teams have the best complementary skill set, you can win on this event. So it would be pretty disingenuous to now say that just because my players didn't work out this year, that you can't win on this event, because I know you can. But my players did not work out this year. I mean, unless Nick Taylor and Adam Hadwin can go mega low today, we will be hoping and praying that John Rahm can go out there today at Chapultepec and re-enter the conversation as one of the best players in the world. And he's got to win more on live. At least forget the majors for a second. If John Rahm is who we think he is and who he has been in the past, he needs to win more golf tournaments on live. And I have single bulleted him this week at Chapultepec. I also single bulleted him at Doral earlier this season, though one other time that I bet on live this year. And he was heavily in the mix at Doral, was the live favorite for a number of holes on Sunday. But entering today, he's 4 shots back of Bryson and in 4th place. So it's going to take multiple things need to happen for John Rahm to win this golf tournament. It's not like Rahm is in a position where he actually controls his own fate here. It's not like he can just go out there and play super well and then he wins the tournament. You're going to need Rahm to both play well, but also have a Bryson or a Neiman not play very well. You will need, at worst, a mediocre final round performance from Bryson and Neiman. And I'm not sure that you can count on that, because I'm not sure that there's enough trouble on this golf course to truly evoke some big numbers out of Bryson and Neiman. But you know what? At least he has a chance. I bet him at 6-1 before the tournament started, and he's 6-1 heading into the final round with only 3 guys ahead of him. But one of them is a top 5 player in the world, and the other one is Joaquin Neiman, where your mileage may vary on how you want to rate him, but he is at minimum a top 2 to 3 player on live, regardless of how you want to judge his performance in major championships. And it's not like Neiman isn't completely capable of going out there and shooting a 67 or a 66 and winning this tournament in his own right. But let's see if Rahm can go out there and drop his big old contract and big balls over everyone and show them who he is. That would certainly be very helpful for me. But I don't have a ton more to say on live or Zurich. So I figure we might as well just dive right into TPC Craig Ranch and the CJ Cup presented by Byron Nelson. I am not going to sit here and tell you that this is one of my favorite golf tournaments on the PGA Tour. In fact, I would even go as far to say that it's probably one of my least favorite golf tournaments on the PGA Tour. But at least we're back to individual stroke play this week with a cut, which I am tentatively excited about. Like I mentioned, it's at TPC Craig Ranch in McKinney, Texas for the 4th straight year. We've got a couple Dallas residents in Scotty Scheffler. Scheffler is going to be the overwhelming favorite. And there's a pretty big gap between Scheffler and who I would believe is probably the second best player in the field in Jordan Spieth. And then you've got Will Zalatoris and Tom Kim, who are also Dallas residents. Sam Burns, I would also throw into the mix as who I would expect to be one of the tournament favorites, but it's essentially Scheffler and then a very big drop between Scheffler and who I would imagine to be Jordan Spieth. I don't know what Spieth's odds are going to be, but I could even foresee a situation where Scotty is like 3 or 4 to 1 and the next best player on the odds board is 18 or 20 to 1. So I'm not sure how that's going to be reflected in DraftKings pricing, but we're once again at another fork in the road where it's to Scheffler or to not Scheffler. And I would imagine that he's in the $13,000 zone on DraftKings. And it's not like Scheffler is playing – he's not playing at the level that we saw out of him last year, but at worst, he feels like a pretty safe bet to finish in the top 10 every single week. And that's what he's been doing. Now, we can litigate how much TPC Craig Ranch is a great golf course for his skill set. But this version of Scotty Scheffler that we've seen in 2025 is a little bit different than the version of Scotty Scheffler that we saw last year when he was winning 8 times, right? And this version of Scotty Scheffler is not hitting the ball at the same level that he was last year. His ball striking is still amazing. He is absolutely the best ball striker in this entire field, but he's actually putting a fair amount better this year. The driving and the short game kind of comes and goes. And TPC Craig Ranch, as we'll talk about, is certainly a golf course. It's one of the easier ball striking golf courses on the PGA Tour, right? It is, in terms of degree of difficulty, it's one of the easiest driving golf courses on the PGA Tour. There's a very low miss fairway penalty, and it's got a 70+% greens in regulation. So it's very, very easy to hit fairways and greens at this golf course. And the biggest defense of it is generally its length. And we'll dive into that in a second, as well as the weather conditions that we're going to see this week. I think it's going to be even softer than we have seen in years past, because we are getting a fair amount of rain on Wednesday afternoon, at least as we sit here now on Sunday morning. But once you get past Scheffler and the Dallas guys, you've got players like Taylor Pendrith, who is returning to defend his title from last year. Taylor Pendrith won this event last year at 23 under par over Ben Coles. He was 90 to 1. The scoring average was minus 2.64. And then the 3 prior years, you had Jason Day at minus 23, and then KH Lee in back-to-back years at 25 under par and 26 under par. This is back when TPC Craig Ranch was a par 72. The last 2 years, it has been now switched to a par 71, and there are even more changes to TPC Craig Ranch this year that we've got to talk about. There is an agronomy change, right? And there's also a big renovation that has started but is not fully completed yet. And that renovation is going to be completed um, ahead of next year's tournament. It's being done by Lanny Watkins, who we'll spend a little bit more time on in the near future. But it now measures as a par 71, 7,569 yards on the scorecard. So it's a very long golf course for the most part. Anytime you have a par 71 that's measuring over 7,400 yards, the golf course is playing quite long, and it appears that there has been a pretty blatantly strong effort to make this golf course more difficult over the past couple of years. After KH Lee won in back-to-back years at 25 and 26 under par, they changed a par 5 hole into a par 4 hole, and I gotta say, it didn't really have much impact on scoring whatsoever. It basically changed the scoring from about minus 2.5 to minus 3 to essentially minus 2.3 to minus 2.6. The fairways are ryegrass. The greens are bent grass, measuring 6,778 square feet on average. The rough is now ryegrass, measuring 3.25 inches, and water comes into play on 4 holes. So, this was Bermuda rough over the past couple of years, and now it has been changed to that ryegrass, and it appears that they are letting it grow out at least a little bit more than we saw last year. If you look at the GSCAA sheet from last year, the rough was Bermuda, measuring 2.75 inches. So now you have a ryegrass rough that measures 3.25 inches. And it remains to be seen if this is going to increase the missed fairway penalty too much at all. But I would say, based on what it appears that they are trying to do with this golf course, there's a very active effort to make the golf course at least play more difficult than it has in the past. And when I say more difficult, we are still talking about something that's completely relative. I mean, the golf tournament is still probably going to be won at something like 20 under par. And the character of the golf course, which is pretty much driver, putter, and spike with your long irons, is not going to change very much just because you now have ryegrass that's a little bit longer than the Bermuda grass that we've seen at this golf course in years past. So the renovation that Lanny Watkins has started and is going to continue to work on after this tournament finishes up this year, the golf course will look different. I would say we already touched on the agronomy piece with the ryegrass rough. And I think that would, again, maybe be a little bit more challenging just because 3.25 versus 2.75. But what you're also giving back as well is that ryegrass is generally easier to navigate than Bermuda. So again, I'm not even totally convinced that the missed fairway penalty is going to increase all that much. The other key change that we have to focus on this year in terms of how this golf course is going to play differently than years past is the new tee boxes. And there's 5 new tee boxes that are going to be utilized this year. And the course can now stretch to around 7,600 yards on the scorecard, when last year the scorecard number was 7,414 yards. So they now at least have the ability to make this golf course play closer to 7,600 yards. And last year, it was rarely even set up to play that long during the tournament last year. So it feels a little antithetical that they're spending all of this money adding these new tee boxes, but then once we get to the tournament week, they're not even fully utilizing these tee boxes, but you've got new tee boxes that were added on 5, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 14. 5 and 9 are both par fives. And I would imagine that this is, simply just lengthening the par fives to increase the distance of the second shot. I mean, the par fives on this golf course are super easy. And the 2 par fives that are being lengthened already played last year as the 17th and 18th most difficult holes on the golf course. So they were already the 2 easiest holes on the golf course, and both of them played more like par 4.5s than they did par 5s. 10 and 11 were also lengthened too, and those were already longish par 4s that measured 471 and 457 yards and ranked as the 13th and 10th most difficult holes on the golf course. I would imagine that tournament organizers were surprised with how easy and straightforward those medium length par 4s played. And the goal here by adding these new tee boxes is to get a middle iron back in the hands of players here. So again, it's just going to increase the proximity buckets, and we're going to see more shots from 200 yards plus than there were 175 to 200 last year. And we're going to see more shots from 175 to 200 yards than there were from 150 to 175 last year. I think, the fact that 10 and 11 will now probably be like a true middle iron par 4 compared to what it was last year, which if you hit a 315 to 320 yard drive, you're essentially getting another wedge in your hands. At least those wedges are now going to be middle irons. And then when you get to the 12th hole, which is a 493 yard par 4 and the longest and most difficult par 4 already on the golf course, I'm not even really sure how much a new tee will really change how this golf hole plays or come into play this year if they even use it. And then 14 is a drivable par 4. And I would imagine the goal is for it to still play as drivable for the longer hitters. So essentially, if I'm giving you the macro 40,000 foot view from above recap of how the golf course is going to play differently with these changes, it's definitely going to make the golf course play at least a little bit harder, but it's not going to change, as I mentioned, the character of the golf course whatsoever, other than making it an even more exaggerated version of what it already was, which is a very straightforward and extreme distance, long iron, and putting fest. I mean, those are the 3 things, and I would put distance as, I guess, distance slash overall off the tee play as number 3 in those power rankings, whereas number 1A and 1B is long iron play and putting. Okay, exactly like we talked about at Memorial Park, exactly what we talked about at Vidanta Vallarta. And this golf course is one of the most long iron intensive golf courses on the PGA Tour. Last year, 39% of all approach shots came from 200 yards plus. And I would expect that number to increase even further this year, especially given the fact that there is going to be significant rainfall in the forecast for Wednesday of tournament week. And I would suggest that given the changes and the rainfall, this might be the most long iron intensive golf course on the PGA Tour now. So exactly like we talked about with Vidanta Vallarta, exactly what we talked about with Memorial Park. TPC Craig Ranch fits in this new brand of golf courses on the PGA Tour where it's all right in front of you. There is barely any missed fairway penalty whatsoever. The greens are fairly poorly designed, and there's not a lot of intrigue or personality to these green complexes at all. And the name of the game on this golf course is, can you hit your long irons well, and can you make a million putts? And since they changed the golf course to a par 71 in 2023, as I mentioned, it played 2.34 strokes under par in 2023 and 2.64 in 2024. Even given the rainfall and the receptive conditions that I think we can expect this year, it appears that there has been, again, all of this is an extremely active and engaged effort to make this golf course play harder. Now, how effective will that be in terms of lowering the scoring average and making the golf course play harder? I'm dubious. The PGA Tour does this all the time, and they continue to underrate the fact that making a golf course longer is really not going to change the scoring average as much as they think it would. The way to challenge professional golfers in 2025 is through interesting architecture, interesting green complexes, wind, and firm and fast conditions. And TPC Craig Ranch has none of those things. Doesn't look like we're going to get a ton to win. We're certainly not going to get firm and fast conditions. And the fact that all of these guys are going to have long irons in their hands, well, I know they're long golf shots, but these are about as straightforward of long irons as you are going to face on the PGA Tour pretty much all year. I mean, it's the same. It's basically Memorial Park with worse green complexes, right? With less intriguing and heavily contoured green complexes, which makes it honestly play a lot like Vidanta Vallarta if Vidanta Vallarta was in Texas, right? Vidanta Vallarta, is past Palm, and Vidanta Vallarta has more more challenging and difficult bunkers. And I would say that's kind of the key separator here between TPC Craig Ranch and Vidanta Vallarta and Memorial Park. Just on paper, in terms of the actual architecture, TPC Craig Ranch is the easiest of that group. They have pretty much the least engaging green complexes of that group, and I would probably predict the scoring average to now come in close to 2 strokes under par, depending on how much wind that we see on tournament week. But again, essentially the greatest comp to be looking at now, well, there's 2 of them, is Vidanta Vallarta and Memorial Park, where the major through line from all of these 3 golf courses is that the only challenge of the entire golf course is its sheer length. And of course, the potential for wind, which it doesn't look like we're going to get a ton of this year. But TPC Craig Ranch is now almost as long iron intensive as Vidanta Vallarta. Craig Ranch last year featured a 39% rate of long iron approaches from 200 yards plus. To place that into context, Vidanta Vallarta was 43%. And this golf course only got longer on 5 different holes. So this is probably going to catch Vidanta Vallarta as the most long iron intensive golf course on the PGA Tour. And if you look at the scoring average at Vidanta Vallarta, it's essentially minus 1.5 per round. So again, the golf course has been essentially reduced to, we're just going to make this Vidanta Vallarta in Texas. And despite continuous, highly expensive efforts, the PGA Tour is going to continue to realize that making a golf course longer is no longer sufficient in solving the distance problem, right? You're putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. Last year, par 71, over 7,400 yards, long iron percentage of 40%, and it's still ranked as the 4th easiest golf course on tour. So think about that for a second. This golf course has the longest approach shots, right, on the PGA Tour. It has long par fours, and obviously you're going to get it skewed because some of them are par fives, but it also has 3 long par threes that are playing over 200 yards as well. And it's still ranked as the 4th easiest golf course on the PGA Tour. And that's because it doesn't play firm and fast enough, and the architecture isn't good. And to be honest, it really remains to be seen what Lanny Watkins is going to do to these green complexes. And when he's finished, we won't see the finished product until 2025. But no personal shots to Lanny Watkins by any means. This is a really confusing hire. There's a laundry list, and I talk about a bunch of them in the podcast that I'm going to put out tomorrow with Andrew Harvey of Golf Club Atlas. We do he just spent a bunch of time in Florida and Texas checking out a bunch of new, really, really cool and exciting golf courses that are going to be opening in the next couple of months to 2 years. And so I wanted to bring him on to talk about this inflection point where there's kind of this new wave of a bunch of new exciting architects coming in. Your Brian Schneiders, your Tyler Rays, your Kyle Franz, your Rob Collins, just to name a few of them. And it's not like Tom Doak, Bill Core, Ben Crenshaw, Gil Hanse. They're still pretty much at the peak of their powers as well. But now you're starting to see, Rod Whitten and Axlin, Eric Axlin as well. They're working on the ranch in Florida as well. So you have this really cool and exciting moment in the architecture space where there's this next wave of really awesome architects coming in that kind of come from the Bill Core, Ben Crenshaw coaching tree, Tom Doak coaching tree, even Tom Fazio coaching tree, and Bill Core and Tom Doak, they're not slowing down either. They're still working as well. So you have all these amazing, highly, highly qualified new architects that are starting to get more restoration jobs, that are starting to get the opportunity to be able to design their own golf courses. And the PGA Tour or whatever company was commissioned to create this renovation / restoration, if you could even quote unquote restore Apologies on the technical difficulties there for a second, but essentially, there's all these new, exciting, talented architects that are doing some phenomenal things right now. And I do not understand how Lanny Watkins got this job over a lot of the other options. Now, I'm not sure that any of these other architects that I'm referring to wanted this job. They may be busy with other projects, but there's opportunity here to do something pretty cool, at least. Like, it is at minimum a very expansive piece of land where you definitely have some room to do some really fun mounding around the green. And again, it remains to be seen what Watkins does with the place, uh, because he is very inexperienced as an architect compared to some of the people that could have been hired for this job. And his CV is extremely underwhelming. Like, this was a deeply unserious hire. And you want to talk about nepotism, boys club, silver spoon. This has all of that all over it. I mean, did he just get this job because he's from Texas and lives in the area and is familiar with the club? I was looking at Watkins' website because I wanted to see it, at least, okay, what are the golf courses he's worked on so I can kind of get a sense of his style, what his overhanging design philosophy is, what school of architecture he may have came from, who his influences might be, so I can have a better sense of what things are going to look like. And his website has not been updated since like 2003. The Lanny Watkins Design Group website literally has not been updated since October 2003, 20 years ago. So the PGA Tour gave this guy $15 million to renovate a golf course that has a long-term deal to host a PGA Tour event and appears to be a large part of their future. And Watkins doesn't even have a fucking website. His most notable work experience for this job is Black Jack's Crossing Golf Course, Cherry Creek Golf Club, Lake Park in Texas, Pinnacle Golf Club in Ohio. What are we doing here? And listen, he may knock it out of the park, who knows, but how was he qualified to get this job? There's no explanation for this. And if I was a Live fan and I was trying to criticize the PGA Tour, this is the type of shit I would point to, because this is just such a deeply unserious hire. But anyway, rant over. This is going to be an incredibly soft golf course, and my breakdown here is incredibly similar to that of Vedanta Vallarta, which, interestingly enough, was won by a shorter hitter, actually. I'll still never understand that Brian Campbell victory, but point being, friend of the pod, I might add now, Brian Campbell. But point being, Campbell was surrounded on the leaderboard by bombers, and I find this to be one of the more straightforward handicaps on tour. It's all about, I mean, distance is very helpful, but because there's what I expect to be a very low miss fairway penalty, if you are short on this golf course, I still think that you'll be able to make up for it with some elite putting. Like, we will absolutely see a player like Mackenzie Hughes that just puts the lights out, finish top 10 in this event, hell, maybe even win. but the easier roadmap to success, the advantage that I would personally be looking to attack would, mainly be long iron play, putting, distance. Those are the three things that you need this week. And if you are good at all three, you are 100% on my betting card. But you need to be good at least 2 out of the 3. Driver putter course, right? Taylor Pendrith, KH Lee, even Jason Day, to be honest, these are all perfect driver putter guys. So let's take a quick little break and then run through my model. Okay, we are back. Top 20 in my model. Number 1, Scotty Scheffler, huge gap. Okay. Number 2, Siwoo Kim was a huge play for us at the Heritage. Couldn't cross the finish line for us. That was a bad Sunday run out, but we had the board covered that week at Heritage. And then we go Pendrith, Keith Mitchell, Alex Smalley, Ben Griffin, Kevin Yu, Rico Hoey, Kirk Kitayama, Gary Woodland, Lee Hodges, Sung J M, Michael Kim, Nikolai Hoshgard, Stefan Jaeger, Jesper Svensson, huge driver putter guy. A lot of these guys are big driver putter guys. Particularly Svensson is like tailor made for this golf course. 17 Hayden Springer, 18 Ryo Hizetsune, 19 Joe Highsmith, 20 Taylor Moore, another awesome driver putter guy with some great course history at Memorial Park as well. So the early leans that I have, number 1, Stefan Jaeger. And we were on him at Memorial Park last year. He has played well at the Byron Nelson in the past. He has a 38th, an 11th, and a 20th. He murders the ball off the tee at this golf course. He's gained significantly off the tee in all 3 of his starts at TPC Craig Ranch. And obviously he's got that course history that we are looking for at both Vedanta Vallarta and Memorial Park. Like I said, I was on him at Memorial Park in the past, and I've bet him in Mexico as well. So if Jaeger is playing well at those 2 golf courses, and he has also played well at TPC Craig Ranch in the past, like, this is the perfect type of golf course for Jaeger. He's got some power off the tee, and he can just bomb away with reckless abandon. The lack of driving accuracy isn't going to hurt him here whatsoever. And mainly, he's starting to hit his irons really well, too. I mean, he's coming off a 32nd at the Heritage where he gained 3.7 strokes on approach. The driver, surprisingly, hasn't been that good for him, which, because he's so long off the tee, if Jaeger's consistently losing strokes off the tee, it means he is really driving it all over the yard and is extremely wild at the moment. But I think this is a golf course where you can firmly get away with that. And he's had some good finishes this year already. 3rd at the Sony Open, 6th in Mexico, 11th at the Houston Open. So those 2 golf courses that I care most about, Vedanta Vallarta and Memorial Park, Jaeger finished 6th and 11th at those golf courses to go along with 3 other top 40 finishes at TPC Craig Ranch. And in 8 appearances at Vedanta Vallarta and Memorial Park, Jaeger has 7 top 20 finishes, 4 top 10s, and a victory at Memorial Park. So, I mean, it's literally the perfect Jaeger spot, and he makes a ton of birdies. He scores on par 5s. He's had success in Texas in the past. There's some putting upside in there as well. He's hitting his long irons well at the moment. Perfect Jaeger spot. The other guy that I would also mention, who's an early lean for me as well, particularly based on some of that course history that we've seen at Vedanta Vallarta and Memorial Park. But I love Sami Valimaki here. Look at Sami Valimaki's recent approach numbers. The guy is hitting the absolute cover off the ball. He's now gained over 3 strokes on approach in 5 straight starts. He did miss the cut barely at the Zurich Classic. I'm not going to read too deeply into that. He was, playing with a partner, and if anything, it's going to help his betting number. But you look at that course history as well at Mexico and Houston Open. And just like Toasty, and Toasty would be my third guy that I would highlight as well, that has played super, super well at both Mexico and the Houston Open. Valimaki has a 4th and a 2nd at Memorial Park and Vidanta Vallarta. So Valimaki can play well at these golf courses, and he is in, some of the best approach form of his entire career. Obviously, gaining over 3 strokes on approach in 5 straight starts, plus the positive comp course history that he has in Mexico and Houston. And Alejandro Tosti is going to check a lot of those boxes as well. He would probably be the third guy that I would mention, where he murders the ball off the tee. He ranks top 20 in this field in recent off the tee play and driving distance. If you filter out for golf courses with a low miss fairway penalty that are driver heavy, his off the tee prowess increases even further, where he's 7th off the tee on kind of these bombs away golf courses. He's hitting his irons well at the moment too. Again, coming off a miscut on the number at the Zurich Classic with Joe Highsmith. I'm not going to read too deeply into that, because prior to that, he finished runner-up at the Corrales Punta Cana, which is, again, very similar as well. Driver heavy, low miss fairway penalty. The biggest defense of that golf course is its pure length. He also finished 12th at the Valero Texas Open this year and 5th at the Houston Open too. So this golf course has a very specific type. And I can give you, I ran through, and if you filter out just Mexico and Houston, and I talked about some of these guys already, but the top 10 guys, if you combine Mexico and Houston, Scotty Scheffler, number 1, Stefan Jaeger, number 2, that's a bet. Alejandro Tosti, number 3, that's probably a bet. Sammy Valimaki, number 4, that's certainly a bet, right? And then you go down, and some other names that popped up. You've got Joel Dahman, Gary Woodland, Brian Campbell, obviously, Ben Griffin, Eric Cole. Isaiah Salenda is another player that has my attention big time. He obviously played well at the Zurich. And then Alex Smalley is another player that I have some significant interest in as well. Jake Knapp, I would also throw into that mix. There is a very specific skill set and type of comp course history that I'm looking for this week. And it feels like a fairly straightforward handicap for me, or at least I hope so. So that will do it for me. Again, the early leans this week: Jaeger, Valimaki, Toasty. I'd throw Alex Smalley into that mix as well, but I'm not sure that I really trust him to make enough putts to win a golf tournament like this. Smalley was on my betting card both at Houston and Vidanta Vallarta, so I probably need to bet him here. But the problem with Smalley, and I would probably say that I trust Valimaki and Toasty's putter even a little bit more than Smalley. Can he make enough putts to win this golf tournament? And that's probably where you would start looking at potentially having one guy like a Mackenzie Hughes, who's played well on both of these golf courses in the past, despite the fact that he's not a great long iron player or bomber off the tee. You've got to make some putts here as well. So, point being, that will do it for me. Apologize again for the late posting. I had some external stuff that I needed to handle today, but I am as excited as one can possibly be for TPC Craig Ranch. I at least think the new tee boxes are going to make the golf course play a little bit harder. longer at least, and it's just going to even turn more so into a long iron fest. But again, long iron play, putting, the same. Houston and Mexico, I perform well at every single year. And I particularly think with the new tee boxes and what they're trying to do at TPC Craig Ranch is just essentially create something very similar to what we've seen at Memorial Park with the low miss fairway penalty. It doesn't have the architecture of Memorial Park. Like, it's not a Tom Doak designed golf course by any means. No shots to Tom Weiskopf, but like I mentioned, it's essentially Memorial Park with more straightforward green complexes. And now the same amount of long irons, and the fact that it's going to play softer this year because all of the rainfall that we're going to get on Thursday, I think even brings more credence to that handicap that we've talked about at similar golf courses in the past. So hop in the Discord. This is as great a week as ever to do it. The PGA Championship is right there on the horizon for us, and we're going to have a ton of great content over at Inside Sports Network in the next couple of days and weeks. Enjoy the golf this afternoon. Good luck with your bets, and we will see you next time. Cheers.